shit, yeah, they bread stank. Walk up in the club, dripping like I'm fresh paint. I can see through the facade like an...
What's going on, fight fans? It's another great day when you love MMA. Welcome back to Mad Matty Fight Talk. So the big question now in the MMA world is what happens to Khamzat Chimaev from here? The biggest rising star in the UFC, you know, kind of fumbled the bag at UFC 279. He was supposed to be taking on Nate Diaz in a massive, big fight. Nate Diaz's last fight, they gave him an absolute wolf, a savage killer, as he likes to refer to himself as, one of the most dangerous, well-rounded fighters the UFC has seen in a long time. Khamzat just reminds me so much of how Conor McGregor took over the game. Now, the big difference between Khamzat and Conor McGregor is McGregor is very professional. Not only does he talk the talk, he walks the walk. He used to make 145. It was not an easy cut for him. If you go back and look at all of those old weigh-in videos, all of the times he was fighting at 145, he looked like a crackhead, bro. It looked like he was dying just to get down to that weight. But he was a man of his word. He did what he said. Now, Khamzat Chimaev is still young in this game. He has not been in the UFC that long, but he's also looking pretty goddamn invincible in these fights. So far, the only one who's really been able to test him is Gilbert Burns. We all saw that. It was a big war against the number 2 ranked guy. To me, he really fucked up not being able to take this Nate Diaz fight. I'm not saying Diaz would have lost, but I know that Khamzat would have been a lot tougher of a fight than Tony Ferguson would have. Now, Diaz is a crafty veteran. Chimaev is the young, up-and-coming star who's very dangerous, nasty ground and pound, elite-level wrestling. So we don't know what was going to happen in that fight. But what I can tell you is he fumbled the bag. He fucked up. He lost some pay for that, for sure. His notoriety went a little bit down. But as far as what we saw on fight night, he's 179, Holland's 179. I mean, they didn't prepare for each other, but a fight's a fight. You know what I mean? In the streets, you got to fight every day to live. So if these guys met in the street, what would have happened is Khamzat would have dragged that motherfucker in an alley and choked him unconscious and killed him. It was bad for Kevin Holland. It was great for Khamzat Chimaev. Took absolutely no damage in that fight. Looked very, very good. Now, the problem here is, how are we going to give this guy a chance at the 170 title? This was supposed to be a #1 contender fight for him, or that was, you know, word around the water cooler. Chael Sonnen saying it, Daniel Cormier saying it. You know, maybe this is a #1 contender. Maybe we could throw him in a title fight after this. He has such a big following. Everybody loves watching this guy fight. It was very hyped up, but the man can't make weight. 170 is 170. I mean, you got to be very close to that. If you're going to miss weight, you want to miss it by a pound at the most. But realistically, when you're getting paid a lot of money to be on these fight cards and be in this organization and get all the promotion that you get, you need to hold up your end of the bargain. Now, if he's struggling to make weight and he's not going to be able to get down to 170, I mean, it really fucking sucks because Khamzat is so fucking good at fighting. I mean, the guy is unreal. He's on another level. And if he took on Leon Edwards right now, in a perfect world, if he would have made weight, he would have fought Nate Diaz. He definitely would have won. Probably could have finished the fight too, because he's just so big and strong. He would have probably got a title shot against Leon Edwards. And judging off of how Leon Edwards fought Kamaru Usman, I'm assuming that Khamzat would have been a fucking nightmare to deal with. That man could easily be the 170 champion, but I can't see him getting a title shot. So as far as potential opponents go, I'm not putting him in a title shot at 170. I don't think Dana White really trusts him. And from the press conferences that I've been listening to, it sounds like Dana White wants to move him up to 185. He doesn't trust the fact that this guy can make weight, and I don't blame him. He's a stickler when it comes to that shit. If you're not making weight, Dana doesn't really fucking like you. I mean, we saw what happened with Charles Oliveira. Missed weight by half a pound and got stripped of his belt. With that being said, there's a few options for big fights for Khamzat at 170. Clearly, Colby Covington is a very big fight for him in that division. That would test him pretty good. And I'm starting to look at it like that would probably be a bigger test for Colby Covington to show how good he really is. Because both of these guys are good wrestlers. I would give Khamzat the striking advantage. I mean, Colby puts punches together, but it's really to set up his grappling. Khamzat goes to knock you out. So that would where it would be very interesting. I'm not even going to say that Colby's a better wrestler than him. I think Khamzat has a slight advantage in every department other than the experience department where Colby would have the advantage. Now, another big fight, which I don't think this one would ever happen because Kamaru Usman is probably going to fight Leon Edwards in the trilogy fight to get his belt back or attempt to get his belt back. But that would be a good fight too. If you guys really think Khamzat's the man at 170, I wouldn't mind seeing him take on Kamaru Usman right now. Right now, the UFC, more than anybody else in the organization, The people running the show have the biggest advantage right now because Leon shocked the world and took the belt. It opens up a lot of opportunities for fights that maybe we wouldn't have seen. I mean, Khamzat versus Kamaru for the title would probably be the biggest deal, but Khamzat versus Kamaru, regardless, would be a really interesting fight. We know that Usman is an outstanding wrestler. We know that he has very good striking. He got caught slipping in his last fight, but I'm not taking anything away from a man who had a 19-fight win streak until that has happened. I wouldn't mind seeing that fight. I think Khamzat versus Kamaru is a good fight. Khamzat versus Kobe. Now, if they move Khamzat up to 185, that's where things get really interesting. Khamzat wouldn't have to cut the weight. He could put on even, go up in weight and then cut down to 185. If he didn't want to kill himself and didn't want to struggle, didn't want to worry about dealing with the weight. He's not an undersized middleweight. He's a perfect size middleweight. But there's some big fights for him waiting in that division as well. One, the champion, Israel Adesanya. If he gets past Alex Pereira, that would be a good fight. That would be tough for Izzy to deal with a guy like Khamzat. Now, other interesting fights in that division. There's one fight in particular, but there's a few other matchups that I'll get to real quick. Marvin Vettori's right there. That'd be a good matchup right off the bat. 185. Nice welcome to the division. Wrestler versus wrestler. Vettori's got some decent striking, but he clearly got dismantled by Robert Whittaker in their last fight, so he's got some things to work on, but that would be a good introduction and good test to see if Khamzat is who he says he is. And then there's Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker's a very, very dangerous fight for Khamzat Chimaev because Whittaker's a very underrated wrestler and he has nasty knockout ability. That would be a big test as well. But the one that I would really, really want to see, this is actually the fight I think that the UFC should make, is Khamzat Chimaev versus Paulo Costa. If that fight got made, and there's a little bit of history there. They were talking shit to each other in the embedded videos. He's going in the gym saying, let's fight right now. Let's fight right now. And I want to see them fight right now. You got to fight Kevin Holland. You took advantage of the situation, absolutely destroyed him. Let's see what you can do against a guy like Paulo Costa, who has pretty good grappling, very underrated grappling as well, I'd say, and is one of the heaviest hitters in that division. I would really, really want to see what Khamzat could do against a guy like Paulo Costa, who's not going to be scared of him, not going to be shy of him. He's going to attack this guy. He's not going to wait for Khamzat to do something and then try to react to it. He's going to push the pace. I think that would be the matchup to make. Out of all of these matchups, if we're staying at 170, if they end up letting him stay at welterweight, I wouldn't mind seeing the Colby Covington fight. That makes the most sense to prove who's fighting for the title after the Kamaru-Leon trilogy. And if we're going to 185 for Khamzat in his future, I see Paulo Costa being the matchup that they would make. Paulo sounds like he wants that fight. I don't know how Khamzat feels about fighting at 185, but if he does fight at 185, that would be a really big, big fight for both of these guys. Then in some side news, we got Jake Paul taking on Anderson Silva and the MVP Promotions. It's going to be going down October 29th in Phoenix, Arizona, and they've agreed on a weight of 187. Now, am I impressed with this matchup? Not really. Jake Paul doesn't surprise me anymore. It's like he only likes to fight former MMA fighters. He has not fought a single boxing background fighter yet. He had one fight set up against a guy in, what's his name, Hasim Rahman Jr., that he was supposed to fight. Hasim didn't make weight. I mean, if I'm Jake Paul, just move up to fucking 195 or 205 or 200. Meet in the middle. You're a big guy. You knock everybody out. I mean, I wanted to see that. I wanted to see his skills test on a boxing platform. But Anderson Silva's no slouch. I mean, the man's 47 years old. He's already had an entire MMA career. He's 3-1 as a professional boxer. So I do want to see what he can do against a guy like Anderson Silva. Now, Anderson Silva has great hands, very good boxing fundamentals, but he's not a boxer. At the end of the day, he's a former MMA champion who's now transitioning over to boxing and having success at it. So I give Anderson Silva more credit than I give to Jake Paul. Jake Paul knows what he's doing. He takes advantage of retired MMA fighters because he knows what we all know. MMA fighters are not boxers. They have to train themselves to think like a boxer. Whereas if you grew up boxing, your body flows for boxing. You're used to the combinations, body, head, 6-punch combinations, not worrying about takedowns, dipping when you need to dip, being able to do all of these fundamental movements because you don't have to worry about getting head kicked, about getting kneed in the face, about an elbow. Clinching's different. All of the fundamentals you learn as a boxer versus as an MMA fighter, it's hard to break those habits. Now, Anderson's a elite, world-class athlete who has great boxing technique, But at the end of the day, if Jake Paul gets a win here, I'm not impressed. You're fighting old, retired people. Like, Anderson Silva is one of the greatest fighters, not just mixed martial artists, not just a boxer. He's one of the greatest fighters who ever lived. To get your shin snapped in half after being a champion and having the longest win streak in the UFC and most title defenses, yeah, you're a legend. You're always going to be a legend. Change the game forever. But taking on a guy like Jake Paul, Jake Paul doesn't get any credit here. What do you get credit for? You're taking on, what is this, your third MMA fighter in a row? You knocked out Ben Askren, who's not even a boxer. You knocked out Tyron Woodley, very impressive, but you also went to decision with Tyron Woodley. And he's not even a real boxer. These guys, like, he's a heavy-hitting MMA fighter, but he's not a real boxer. So people are giving Jake Paul a lot more credit than he deserves. I mean, yes, you step in there against world-class athletes who have had a big platform, but are at the tail end of it. How do you feel fighting a 47-year-old man? I mean, I'm not saying Anderson Silva can't win this fight. He is a great boxer, and he's beat people like Julio Chavez Jr. He's defeated guys that have really good boxing credentials. So I'm not going to be shocked if Anderson goes in there and shocks the world, which he has a long history of doing. But if Jake Paul goes in there and knocks Anderson Silva out, I'm not going to be like, oh my God, he's proven himself. He's the greatest fighter. Jake Paul's the realest boxer ever. You're not, bro. Fight a fucking boxer. Like, I know that you hate hearing that, dude, but nobody gives a shit about you fighting old-ass MMA fighters. Go in there and fight somebody who has a boxing background, who's having success at boxing in your organization, in your world, whatever, the boxing realm. Get somebody who wants to fight you, who's a good boxer, and we'll see how we go from there. You fucking go in there and knock out a boxer, I'm never talking shit again. And I really wouldn't, because then you prove something. Go in there and fighting Anderson Silva, win or lose, bro. It's not a win or lose for you. You're baiting into the same shit. Now, from a business standpoint, yeah, you're going to make a shit ton of money. So maybe that's what he's thinking about too, is this is a big name. Everybody loves Anderson Silva. This is going to sell out a fucking arena, which it will. I'll be tuning in. I love Anderson Silva. I'm not tuning in because I like Jake Paul. I want to see Anderson Silva fight. If Jake Paul has success, then good for him. But at the end of the day, I don't give a shit about you fighting an MMA fighter. All hating aside, I do think Jake Paul's pretty good at boxing. That motherfucker has heavy-ass hands. He can knock people out for sure. There's no question about that. He definitely has the hands to do it. But I want to see your skills tested against somebody who does what you do and who's having success at what you do. Because that will earn a lot more respect than you going in there and fighting a motherfucking MMA fighter again. You're just getting baited into the same old shit. I mean, this guy's a smart businessman, so he clearly knows what he's doing, and obviously he's setting up his career to work, not just he don't want to go in there and get against Canelo. He really doesn't want that, bro. Canelo would fucking handle him. You know what I'm saying? He's not going to go in there and take an L when he's steamrolling and making millions. So I get what you're doing, bro, but at the same time, let's see what you can do against a boxer. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching my video. Hit the bell icon to be notified when I drop more content. Smash that like button. Hit me in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. What's next for Khamzat? Who you guys got in this Jake Paul fight? And I'll see you guys on the next video.
Haters talking shit, yeah, they breath stank. Walk up in the club dripping like I'm fresh paint. I can see through the facade like an